and I feel like I bring a slightly different perspective, but probably my talks really follow nicely after the one before, because at some point there was some saying about we need some water for really keeping going with all the growing, so we need to work together on solution, and without water, its prices might just go over the top. So I'm an associate engineer with Larry Walker Associate. I'm also an adjunct professor with UC Davis. And in the past 5 years, actually, I mostly worked on developing groundwater sustainability plans that due to the fact that SGMA has passed. And the goal of my talk today is kind of giving you a refresh on SGMA, on the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, and what has happened so far, and where are we with the process? So what's happening right now? So really, what I would like to concentrate is just a quick overview on the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, and then we will go a little bit into, probably most of you heard about these groundwater sustainability plans that have been now submitted pretty much for every agency in the state. And I would like to just point out a couple of key components of these plans in case some of you want to go and double check information. The plans are all pretty similar, at least in terms of structure. And then the next question is, where are we now in the process, and what's happening with this implementation of the plan? So very quickly, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act was passed in 2014, actually early 2015, during the major drought. And it was really meant at giving emphasis on local control, and with the state only doing oversight. And the state is expected to intervene if the local action are not taken. And I think this is the reason why it requires it required the development of groundwater sustainability agencies, and or all the groundwater sustainability agency had to work together in the past 5 years, either together or work at the same time, to develop groundwater sustainability plans. What was the original goal of the Act? The idea is to halt emerging undesirable outcomes related to groundwater pumping and bring groundwater basins in California into sustainability. And the idea is that this sustainability doesn't need to be reached right now, but it has to come in the next 20 years of implementation. And the planning under the Act really will provide long-term protection of water supply against climate change and droughts. This is kind of the framework and why everything has started. Who's interested? And I work with the Farm Bureau to produce some brochure in the past to really try to make everybody aware of what's going on. And in this map, basically, the color basins are the ones that are required to develop a groundwater sustainability plans. The area in red is the area with the overdrafted basin. And for these basins, plans were submitted in January 2020. The yellowish area are the medium and high priority basins. And for these basins, actually plans have just been submitted in January 31st this year. So there were 2 years of delay between the overdrafted and the other basins. So what is the key of this sustainable management? And what is really the goal at the end of the day? Why do we really need to be involved, and everybody should have an idea of at least what's going on, because we all need water for different reasons, and somebody even more than others. So the idea behind the sustainable management for SGMA is protecting all the groundwater basins in California from 6 possible undesirable results that might be happening because of groundwater pumping and general overuse of water. And which are these 6 undesirable results? They are the lowering of groundwater levels. They are the reduction of groundwater storage in the subsurface, the seawater intrusion that clearly doesn't apply to all the basins, only on the coastal basin, degradation of water quality, so like leaching of nitrate, excessive salt, so just making water not really usable for many different purposes. Land subsidence, which is more common in the lower part of Central Valley, but recently in the last satellite data analysis, actually there are other areas throughout the state that are suffering from land subsidence. And then the possible depletion of surface water, which is induced by groundwater pumping. And the goal of the groundwater sustainability plan was really to study the basin in order to develop measures that could demonstrate how these undesirable results will not be happening anymore in the next 20 years. So it's kind of it's a long-term planning, which is important because, you know, I keep saying groundwater moves slowly. So we cannot really change things from one day to the other. We need time, and we need a really step-by-step process to understand what it's really going to make a difference in terms of groundwater conditions. Where are we with this, what we call the road to sustainability? We are kind of where there is the red arrow there. So the planning has been done. The plans have been adopted by the different agencies and submitted to DWR. Department of Water Resources already reviewed the overdrafted plans that were submitted in 2020 and is now working on the review of the 2022 plans. And now it's pretty much where the real game starts, in a sense, because it's where the implementation starts, where action needs to be taken to demonstrate that in the next 20 years, all the basins will reach sustainability. And the way the law is written requires all the agencies to do a sort of check-in every 5 years. So there will be an update of the plan, an update of the condition every 5 years from now on. So in terms of dates, January 1st, 2015, it's when SGMA begins. By June 30, 2017, all the Groundwater Sustainability Agency were formed, and it was a big success because I think it was more than 99% of the area that was required to have an agency was covered by that day. January 31st, either 2020 or 2022, the groundwater plans were submitted to Department of Water Resources, and between 2020, 2022, and 2040, 2042 is when the basins needs to work to achieve sustainability using what it's included in the implementation of the plan. So it's a long time, or it feels like a long time, but now for some basin 2 years have already passed, and really it takes time to make this change happens. So from the perspective of watching a few groundwater sustainability agencies work toward the development of the plans, I kind of have some message about what I see as the keys to success to really have sustainability in the next 20 years. I believe that the groundwater sustainability plan needs to be accepted and approved by the DWR, and this is part of the requirements of the Act, but it also needs to be accepted by the local stakeholders, because if actions need to be taken, everybody needs to be on board and try to do his part on working together for solutions. And it's really important to keep going even after the plan development with effective communication and community involvement, because really it takes a community effort to come to some ideas and solution. It's good to have, it is interesting and it's good that all the plans have been submitted on time, and now it's the time to see if these plans are effective and if they can be successful from the perspective of implementation. The plans need to have good science and good data, because that's pretty much the main comments that Department of Water Resources provided so far. So they said many times that some of the plans didn't really use all the available good data. The plans also develop tools. They develop database, they develop models, and I think that one of the keys to success is really to see how these tools can be useful into the future. So there is a model that has been developed. There are scenarios that have been considered. How can we design different scenarios and use the same tools for other applications? And the key, the really big keys to the success right now is starting an implementation right after the GSP submission. And I'm saying that because I feel like probably this was not fully clear, because some of the GSP of the plan have not yet been approved by Department of Water Resources. So some of the stakeholders were questioning with me and saying, why do we need to do something? We don't even know if the department will approve the plans. But at the same time, it's good to move sooner rather than later, also considering the current condition in terms of drought. A quick summary of how all the agencies got to develop the plan and how are they going to implement them. I feel like there was a big part of the discussion that we really involved a lot of stakeholder engagement in all the plans I've been involved with. So a lot of learning, a lot of communication, a lot of sharing information. All what we learned has been included in the hydrology, the basin understanding, all the data collection, the modeling, and some assessment. And what is coming out from this package of stakeholder information and engagement and hydrology and basin condition is really some ideas of how we can manage our basin, looking into groundwater supply management and groundwater demand management. And I will go a little bit more in detail on these aspects. So, and I'm giving you this overview of the groundwater sustainability plans because they are all available online. So you are for sure part of all part of different groups and different plans, and but they can be downloaded and everybody can go and look into what happened in its own basin. The plans, they generally have five main chapters, and then each agencies may have structured them slightly different, but there is a general introduction that explain how the agency has been formed, who is part of this plan, and which areas are involved. We have a second chapter that has all the information about the area of the plan and what it's called basin setting. The basin setting is really describing the hydrology, the geology, the general water use, the land use. So what's happening in the area, kind of the status quo. One of the key chapter, and it seems like is the one where there were most of the comments from the Department of Water Resources so far, is the sustainable management criteria, which are really like the measure that each agency is using to see how things are moving and how sustainability can be reached. And I will show you something about this. Another key chapter is about projects and management actions, which is really what the agency and the locals are planning to do to demonstrate that the basin can be sustainable in 20 years and to really reach this sustainability in case there is some lack of water somewhere. And finally, the plan implementation. So I will not spend much time on the first two chapters, but I just want to spend a bit of time on chapter 3, 4, and then chapter 5. And let's go directly into chapter 3, which is, and I say chapter 3 because this is the template that Department of Water Resources provided. So many of the GSPs follow this numbering. They might still be different, that there might be differences, but still the title is Sustainable Management Criteria. So this chapter is really looking into defining locally based criteria that are really representing the basin condition and that should be achieved in order to demonstrate that there is no significant and undesirable results in the basin in the next 20 years. So basically, the way it works is if we think about a sort of thermometer and we look at all the undesirable results that that needs to be avoided in the basin, so the lowering of groundwater levels, the reduction of storage, and so on, how do these management criteria work out? So if we take, for example, the lowering groundwater levels, so we need to find a way to show that we are halting the current rate of lowering groundwater levels. And, you know, in some basin, it might be possible to really completely make them flatter, but in other basin, it's more like just changing the gradient and making it less steep. So what we need to do is to define what is called minimum threshold, which is a sort of it's basically the line we don't want to cross. Basically, it's a minimum value of groundwater levels that is still acceptable and would not cause undesirable results in the basin. And that is kind of really the line that the groundwater sustainability plan should not cross during the implementation time. And then there is what it's in the green area in the plot, which is the measurable objective, which is kind of the goal the basin wants to strive for. So where ideally we should be with groundwater elevation to be in a sustainable condition. And these indicators, these are called indicators, and criteria for all these indicators are developed for, have been developed locally for each basin. So there is not one rule that fit all. It's really local decision, and I've seen very different approaches throughout the state. The next chapter is really what I think it's important now, and I think where really the stakeholders need to get together and look for solution. And it's a list of projects and management actions that the different plan highlighted as possible solution for reaching sustainability in the next 20 years. And the difference between projects and management action is just that projects can create or modify a physical structure or a system to create desired changes or results, while so it really looks into also construction or, I don't know, changing some water diversion or this type of actual physical projects. And management action might include, for example, the creation of policies, procedures, or regulation, and that can create desired changes or desired results. All the implementation needs to happen over the next 20 years. And I've seen many basins going with a sort of tiered system. So there is a tier 1 of project and management action, which is including all the projects that are already ongoing. And then tier 2 and 3 that are, for example, near future and needing further evaluation projects. But something that maybe tier 2 might be something that it's already in the making, is just maybe waiting for the perfect grant to fund it. And tier 3 is more like, would be nice to do it, but we really don't know how to get there yet. What are examples of projects and management action? There is really a lot about managed groundwater recharge. So with the idea of improving groundwater resources and increase the storage in the aquifer. Ideas included also optimization of municipal groundwater extraction through metering and water distribution system repair. This is for more municipal area. There is a lot about installing new monitoring wells to have a better feeling of how things are going. And these are just examples. Honestly, if you open the project management actions of the currently submitted plans, you can really get a lot of ideas. And what I see as what happened with the stakeholder during GSP development, we really highlighted a lot of opportunities that are coming with the Act and a lot of challenges. And I don't want to go much into detail, but I would say that it looks like it's good to have a tool that can be used to kind of design what to do from there. And it so far is all locally managed. So there is still room for stakeholders coming together and working on solution before the state eventually takes over. And hopefully the state doesn't really want to take over all these basins. So that's something that is gonna happen down the road eventually. The challenges included a lot of data gaps, many areas where there are just few wells, where it's difficult to even make contour lines to understand where the groundwater level data are. And another big challenge has been, this is an example of a precipitation plot from Northern California. And the trend, as you can see, this is the plot from 1940 to 2020. There is a general tendency of a big decrease in precipitation, and the last 20 years have been among the driest ever. So where are we now? And then I'll bring it to kind of a conclusion. So right now, all the agencies need to move into the implementation of the groundwater sustainability plan. And unfortunately, drought conditions are there and groundwater levels are still decreasing. So it's really time for the agencies to take action and start working on steps toward different type of projects. Where are the projects coming from? The projects need really to look into options for managing the supply and managing the demand and find some way to balance the supply and the demand. And this is kind of tricky because in years like this, like I have a lot of agencies that work toward the permit for groundwater for diversion and for doing groundwater recharge, and there is not enough water in the river, so recharge didn't happen yet. And so it's really like the roadmap for the GSA is work on managing and administering the plan, and really work toward fulfilling all the requirements of the law. Work on the implementation of the monitoring program that are included in the sustainable management criteria, and then work on projects implementation. It's a lot of work for these groundwater sustainability agencies that are also new agencies. They really didn't exist before. So I totally understand that it has not been easy for many of the agencies to really gear up after the plans have been submitted. And there is a lot of outreach and education that needs to keep happening. I just wanted to point out there is a review of groundwater sustainability plan that was done by the Public Policy Institute, and it's looking at the how a combination of supply augmentation and demand reduction would fit best in terms of reducing the economic impact of the Act. And basically, this is a very simple scheme. It looks like it's taken from the plan developed by Eastern San Joaquin County. And if we look at the total water use, we can see that there is some overdraft, which is projected to happen. We have groundwater use and we have surface water use. If we want to think about sustainable condition, we have to think about something that takes the overdraft and uses projects to kind of fulfill that gap. And in this way, we would go into sustainable groundwater yield, so something that it's really sustainable for the future, and we can keep the same surface water use. And this is just an example, it's just a sketch of how it may work. Last one is just to give you a quick summary of how Department of Water Resources evaluated the 2020 submitted plans. These plans, if we look at the plans for the overdrafted basin, 10 out of the 11 plans were judged incomplete. The department outlined necessary improvements, and these improvements need to be made by summer 2022. It looks like there was a failure to meet DWR standards, and this is why the plan has been judged inadequate. And if the plans are not fixed, there is a potential triggering intervention by the State Water Board. And the key comments were that the GSP, the plans need to do more to address the undesirable results, and particularly the undesirable results related to drinking water wells and land subsidence. And there is a need to improve the coordination of data, methods, and management approaches. And also there is a need to improve plans for supply and demand management action. And this is kind of the end of my talk. Is just a quick summary. I like to conclude with this picture that really explain this is an adaptive management process that happens every 5 years, and it might be step by step. Nothing can happen right away, also because we still have a lot to learn about how to manage groundwater. And I can answer questions. Let me.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't see any question at the moment in the Q&A, but if there is any questions from the audience wanted to ask, I think that might be time now. I don't know whether there is they can ask audio or, turn on their.
No, so there's not actually an audio option.
Okay. So yeah, that's okay.
Good question.
Yeah.
I think we could actually allow someone to talk. We would just have to give them that ability. It's just easier to put it in the Q&A. Are there any questions out there for the Q&A? Now is the time to ask. We've got someone on the line for Sigma. She might have some answers for you. Or associated to Sigma, sorry. Well, we'll see if anyone filters into the Q&A. Sometimes it takes time for them to get the questions in there. So
yeah,
I'll go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say that, thank you for everyone. I think this is the last talk, all right? So under my assignment. So I want to say thank you to all the speakers in this session and today overall, and also all the participants for your patience and, attending the session and learning about these various things, important things that we talked about. So with that, I'll just hand it over to Kay.
Actually,
yeah, go ahead, Laura.
There is a question. So do you think there will be regions where groundwater pumping for ag use will be curtailed? So the situation is really tricky right now. So what's happening is that in some areas in Northern California, groundwater has been curtailed already by the State Water Board. So I'm talking about some valleys up in Siskiyou County, and it happened already last year, and is happening again this year. And because the situation seems to be like really critical, so the State Water Board intervene. What we are trying to help stakeholders fighting back is saying, now that there is a plan, because there are these groundwater sustainability plan, let's the local try and see if the plans may work before coming in and doing the curtailment. So, and now there is a general, with the fact that the groundwater has been curtailed in one place, there is a general fear that this can happen somewhere else. So I feel like the best solution is really think about start implementing, and everybody understand that the changes cannot happen in a day, but these plans are really kind of a good tool right now that can be used to eventually counter back I'm not sure it's going to be possible everywhere, but I see that there is the risk for ag curtailment right now. So having a local control, and instead of having a groundwater curtailment coming from the top, but having it decided in a way that it's really locally driven, that's kind of the power of SGMA and of the plans that have been submitted so far. So it's a reality. That's something that's happening.
Thank you, Laura.